Alright, as it is customary, we are doing an upgrade guide for the new D&D Commander Legends Baldur's Gate Electric Boogaloo number 2, whatever else it's called, 50 other names. Mind Flayers EDH deck tech here for today. But just before we get into the video for today, if you are enjoying the content that I'm putting out there, please do consider subscribing, turning on that notifications. It really helps us out. But with that being said, let's get right on into the video for today. Alright, so before we get too far going on into this deck here for today, we have to have a look at our commander for the face card from this deck, which is Captain Nagarthod. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that, but excuse me. Why do you guys consistently try to make these cards impossible for anyone to pronounce? But whatever. 5 mana, 3/6 is a horror pirate. Horrors you control have menace, so it doesn't say other horrors, so he has menace, which is okay, sure. Whenever a horror you control deals combat damage to a player, that player mills that many cards. Sure, okay, fine. At the beginning of your end step, choose target artifact or creature card in an opponent's graveyard that was put there from the library this turn. Put it into the battlefield under your control. Now, I'm going to say this again. This is not a deck that I'm probably going to like because this is not my style of deck too much. I mean, it is choose. So it doesn't say choose up to 1, so you have to essentially do this ability. And again, milling people just isn't really my thing to do. So this is kind of an awkward deck for me to sort of build or to upgrade. I know what's good though to a sense and to a degree, because mostly you want horrors for this deck, obviously. And you want to get those horrors in there with evasive damage. Now, there's not that many horrors out there. Not like there's none, but again, not like there's 1,000 horrors out there. Though there might actually be like 100 so horrors. Might want to look it up, but whatever. Anyway, we want as many really good horrors as we can get. So we'll see if we can find some really good horrors in a few minutes, but we have to have a look at this deck list that Wizards has made and try to make some changes to it to better that list, because there's always changes to be made. Yeah, so let's get on and have a quick look at that. Alright, so here we are having a look at the deck list. I will say for about the millionth time, which I'll probably have to say a million more times, no matter how many of these I do, all the prices of these cards are in fluctuation. For the commander for this deck is at $40. There's no way this card is going to be worth $40 in a couple of days' time when these kits and whatnot release onto the streets and whatnot. All these prices will be in flux. All the new cards, no one really knows what they're doing and how good they are. There's speculation about how good some of them are, but suddenly people go, oh, it wasn't actually really that good as what we thought. And then other cards that you go, oh, I don't think it's that good. Suddenly, wow, holy crap, this is good. You know, like, so it's one of those things. Prices are always in flux. Take everything here with a grain of salt. It's nice to see that the deck has some amount of value in it, but that will quickly wear down because these cards will actually get printed. Of course, a lot of the new cards, again, don't have prices. So if you don't see a price, you know, again, that is what it is. Again, for about the millionth time, I've got to say this every single time I do these deck upgrade guides. Take out any of these tap lands that you can and whatnot. Even Creeping Tar Pit and things like that. Demir Aqueduct, whatever, all these sorts of things. Even if you're on a super budget, like I say, put in basics. Like, maybe Path of Ancestry and a couple other ones that are really good over a long period of time are really good. But other than that, most of the other tap lands that are in these decks aren't really worth your time. Take out Temple of the False God. It's not worth your time. Take out Myriad Landscape. It's not worth your time. So, yeah, I'm not going to keep, drilling that down too much. I'm just going to say, hey, take these cards out. What are these cards? Take them out. You don't need them. All right, so what do we need with horrors? Now, what horrors do we actually have? Summon Beast. Is this thing an actual horror? I guess it is because there's a horror in the name of it, so I'm guessing that's a horror. That's a horror. Horror. This is a horror? Okay, cool. Spell Sky. That's a horror. Wow, okay. Warned Infiltrator. I don't know some of these cards. Some of these cards are new cards. Grizzlix. Wow, there's actually a fair few interesting horrors that I didn't realize were horrors. I didn't realize Ravenous Chupacabra was a horror. There you go. A lot of the time you don't read some of the creature types for some of these creatures and whatnot, so it's interesting to see what is a horror and what isn't a horror sometimes. What else have we got here? So all the creatures. Oh wow, Hullbreaker Horror is pretty decent card to put in this deck. I think Nemesis of Reason's actually that good, but whatever. Sometimes we have to take bad horrors to a degree, just to stick to that theme. So what have we got here? We've got some decent. So 1, 2. You might want one more mana rock in this deck, but overall that seems fine. I'm wondering why it has Greaves but not Boots. But that's fine to an extent. Though I would say if you want to protect your commander or just at least have hasty creatures, you want both. Yeah, I have both in one deck, and I almost never see either of them. Garrick's Wake is okay. There's not a huge amount that's so amazingly better, but yeah, that's budget at least. Like Cyclonic Rift would be good. And some of these new cards I'm going to have to read as we sort of go along, but, it is what it is. I don't like Hex. I don't think you need Hex. I think you can cut it. Certainly there'll be situations where, destroying 6 target creatures for 6 mana is really good. But then there'll be cases where you go, I can't kill 6 target creatures unless I kill one of my own, or I can't kill 6 target creatures because there's only 5 creatures on the battlefield, or there's only 1. So this costs 3 less. So it costs 3 mana to kill 2 creatures, which isn't terrible most of the time. But I would think that just straight up kill 1 creature, Baleful Mastery, things like that, exile a thing, whatever would be just better for the most part. But that's just me. But again, do we want that much removal? I don't know. It's tough to say. Because we've got several creatures, or at least 1 or 2 creatures that I saw that were having that kill people's stuff. So you do need instant speed on a lot of removal to a degree. That's a thing. So you could say that's neither here nor there. I'm not a huge fan of Siphon Mine most of the time, but this is a deck that wants to put things in opponents' graveyards a lot, so we can take a huge advantage of that. If there's any cards that are kind of like this, I would suggest that we try to run them, especially if they're actually creatures as well. But those are also pretty hard to get. Fact or Fiction. It is okay. I don't know how much recursion this deck has. So I'm not sure how much stuff you're going to get back from your own graveyard. Like your opponent's graveyard, yeah, sure, but not your own. So I would swap it out for something else. Crippling Fear is just okay-ish. I noticed this in my Squirrel deck that I had it in for a long time, and it just never really did a whole lot. I would take it out for Kindred Dominance. Just choose a creature type, and if it's not that creature type, it dies. That or whatever the Dragons one is, Crux of Fate. That you choose dragons or not dragons, and you kill all of that type or all of those types. I don't know why you need Pull for Tomorrow, but it's just okay. I don't love Feed the Swarm, but I can see why it's in here. Drown in the Loch is okay. I actually think this is a bit of a card that I probably underrate a little bit sometimes because it is dual moded. But the one problem every time I come up with it is that, well, opponent doesn't have enough things in the graveyard. But with this deck, not a lot of the time, our opponents are going to have a lot of stuff in the graveyard. So I would say that it's fine. And it does counter spells. So, yeah. So we do want to take out some of these more lax creatures that sort of don't have evasion, don't have like anything that really pays us off. Some of the creatures that just sort of like sometimes having a big creature is really good, definitely, and we do need those sorts of effects, but we want bang for our buck. We don't want, a 7-mana 1 4/4 that doesn't really do anything. And we really want things like that steal things from our opponents' graveyards or mill our opponents. And that's going to be kind of difficult. There's, as I said, not that many horrors out there, and some of the really good horrors like Consuming Amberition are here. So there's a lot of competition for a lot of slots. So I would say that we really need to, dig into some horrors and, see what we can actually, gleam and what ones would be worth the time. Because, look, Chasm Skulker is okay, but just okay. That's what I mean. It's one of those cards that, it takes so much time to build up all these counters and get all these squid things. And it's like, well, that isn't really what we're doing. We're not trying to go wide with tokens to a degree. And yeah, we might draw some cards throughout the game, but it doesn't really impact what we're doing. And even if it gets big enough to get kind of in there, yes, it will have menace, and that can be really good with our commander and things like that, but still we could do a lot better, I would say. So there's some subpar choices sometimes that you have to make when you've got a tribe that doesn't have a whole lot of members and things like that, and sometimes Phyrexian Metamorph might not sound to me to be too amazing sometimes, or Spellskite's actually pretty decent, but still. I often find cards like this, you name a card, and then if that card never gets played, it's like, oh, okay, cool. Well, I kind of played this for nothing, which is why I like the ones that, look at the hand and then you can go, oh, okay, cool, I know you've got this, so whatever. Or if the thing is on the battlefield, then it's like, oh, okay, cool, that thing can't do anything now. That's cool, but again, that's not going to happen a lot of the time, I would say, with cards like this. I would rather just something that says kill that thing, or whatever, instead of trying to, especially with this deck, because it's just like, oh, you've got that thing in your graveyard, well, I'm just going to steal it and now it's mine. Instead of trying to stop people from using it, just kill it and then steal it, I don't know, that just seems like a lot better. And just this sort of thing, like Dolthy Horror, yeah, it would be really good for like a ninjas deck or whatnot to a degree, but beyond that, it's just like we could find something else. It has no real relevant text to a degree. Yes, sure, it can mill our opponents and it's unblockable in a sense because it has menace and shadow and all this, but like we want more. We want more than that. We want, and that's again going to be tough. So we better have a quick look to see if we can actually find some of these things that we could suggest because there's a few things here that I can see we could take out. All right, so here we are having a look at all things that are horrors. Um, so Avix the Mind Flail, it doesn't really exactly do what we kind of want, but it does steal our opponent's cards, which is kind of half of what we want. So I would say that that's a pretty decent horror to sort of look at. And we're looking here by rarity because usually like the best cards are like the mythics and the rares and whatnot. Toxrule would be pretty darn gross. So that would be a card maybe. Again, like I'm not going by any kind of like price point of saying like whatever. If you guys can't afford the card or you don't have the card, don't worry about it. Just find one of the other more budget cards or whatnot that you can fit into your deck. There's some really old, funky, like, horrors here, man. Like, wow. Like, so some of these are going to be cards that I've never seen before because, again, I've never really looked at horrors. There's certainly some interesting cards and some very disgusting looking cards here, too. Mindless Mass. That sounds kind of like the type of filth this deck would want. Certainly. This is gonna take a little while. Kind of want to get a bit more specific, maybe. This is so tough. There's not a lot. Screaming Swarm? That seems real good. Wow. Like I say, it's tough to find cards that are in the right tribe and do what you kind of want to do them, have them do sometimes. So there's not a lot here. There might be some support enchantments. For the most part, I think that that's pretty much it. So unfortunately, that's kind of where we've got to leave it for now. I think that the archetype is interesting to a degree, but again, it's just mill and steal. At least you are doing something more than just like milling people. I guess you're doing the more annoying thing of like actually stealing their cards as well. So yeah, there's certainly some other horrors, but they honestly don't really do a whole lot to the game plan. And yeah, you could run them, but they don't really do a whole lot for what you're actually trying to do. They could get bigger based on other factors, or you could return them based on other factors. But I would say there's not enough here. Maybe a few more sets of printing horrors, and they'll actually like get enough really good ones to actually start like making a playable deck. But at this point, I would say that the deck is a very difficult deck to sort of put together and to build because there's only so many horrors and only so many really good ones. So again, let's get back to this. So yeah, as I say, there's maybe a few things here and there that, like you do steal things. Some of the backgrounds are kind of interesting and whatnot. I don't understand why Leyline's in here because I don't know. Like why is Black Market in here? So yeah, it's a tough list to fiddle with because there's only so many horrors, and there's lots of cards that are here that I would say are kind of not like what you really want to be doing. You don't really just want generic things. You want to be stealing your opponent's stuff all the time, milling them, etc., etc. So there's just only so much you can do with it right now until they print more horrors and whatnot. So unfortunately, that's where I'm going to have to leave it here for now. But let me know, guys, maybe in the future, if you're watching this in 5 years' time or whatever, I don't know, that, hey, they've released 30 new horrors. Hey, oh, by the way, could you redo this deck and, yeah, suggest some cards that'd be really good? Yeah, I'll definitely bring it back or whatnot. I'll bring out any deck back if you want me to bring any deck back and say, hey, that deck didn't really get a fair shake of the lamb's tail or whatever because there was basically 3 really good horrors and most of them were in the deck already. But anyway, guys, hope you have enjoyed this one, and you can let me know your thoughts. Write them down there in the comments, whatever they are. I'll be sure to respond to your comments. Really love interacting with you guys, talking about EDH, the geeky things that we love here, playing these cardboard rectangles. But yeah, if I don't see you down there in those comments, I'll see you in the next one.